The cargo ship Morning Star drifted through the black void of space, its hull scarred from years of travel between distant worlds. Inside the cockpit, Taeyong sat with his feet up on the control panel, watching the stars pass by. His co-pilot Minyu was in the back fixing something that had broken for the third time that week. Tiang, the cooling system is acting up again, Minyu called out from the engine room. Just hit it with a wrench, Tiang replied, not taking his eyes off the window. I already did that. Hit it harder. This was normal life for human cargo haulers in the year 2847. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 5 years ago, and most humans worked simple jobs like shipping goods between planets. The galaxy was huge, filled with hundreds of alien species. Most of them had been traveling through space for thousands of years. Humans were the new kids, and everyone knew it. Tiang didn't mind. He had spent 10 years in Earth Special Forces before becoming a cargo pilot. Compared to military life, flying a broken-down ship through peaceful space was easy. Boring but easy. We're about 2 hours from Calvar 9, Tiang said into the ship's intercom. Haeyun, you awake back there in the passenger section? Haeyun opened her eyes. She had been trying to sleep for the past hour, but the ship's rattling made it impossible. She was a diplomat on her way to the trade station at Kelvar 9 for another boring meeting about shipping regulations. I'm awake, she said, hard to sleep when the ship sounds like it's falling apart. She's not falling apart, Tiang said defensively. She's just old. There's a difference. Haeyun smiled and went back to reading reports on her tablet. The galaxy was mostly peaceful these days. Thanks to the Galactic Council, they made sure everyone followed the rules. Trade was good. Wars were rare, but there were exceptions. The Versh Dominion was one of those exceptions. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Versh. They were a species of reptilian warriors who had been conquering other worlds for 300 years. They didn't join the Galactic Council. They didn't follow any rules. They just took what they wanted. The Versh were 7 ft tall, with scales like armor and claws that could cut through metal, but their real weapon wasn't their strength, it was fear. When the Versh decided to conquer a planet, they would first capture some people from that world. They would torture them, slowly recording every scream, every plea for mercy. Then they would broadcast those recordings to the entire planet. By the time the Versh ships arrived, most civilizations would surrender without a fight. Those who didn't would be crushed in days. Versh had conquered 42 different species this way. They had never lost a war. Taeyong knew all this, but he wasn't worried. The Versh operated far from human space. The chance of running into them was almost zero. That's what he thought. Anyway, the alarm started screaming. What the hell? Minyu ran back to the cockpit. Tiang was already in his seat, hands flying across the controls. 3 ships had just appeared on there. Scanners moving fast, very fast. Pirates? Minyu asked. Tiang zoomed in on the ships. His face went pale. Worse, Varesh raiders. Haeyun rushed into the cockpit. Versh out here? That's impossible. This is council space. Tell them that, Tiang said, watching the 3 warships close in on their position. The Varka ships were brutal looking things, all sharp angles and dark metal. They looked like they were designed to cause fear just by being seen. Weapons ports opened along their holes. They're hailing us, Minyu said quietly. Tiang hit the come button Face appeared on the screen. It was a Varish warrior with cold yellow eyes and rows of sharp teeth. When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh. Human vessel, you will shut down your engines. You will prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in pain. The cum went dead. Looked at Taeyang. What do we do? Tiang stared at the screen for a moment, then slowly a smile spread across his face. What are you smiling about? Hun asked. Confused and scared. I'm thinking, Tiang said. His smile grew wider. This is not the time to be happy, Minyu said, but Tiang was already working. His hands moved across the controls, bringing up system after system. Minyu, go to the cargo bay. We're carrying mining explosives, right? Yeah, but there. Start moving them toward the airlocks. Hey Yun, can you fly this ship? What? No, I'm a diplomat. You're about to become a pilot. Sit here, keep us steady. Taeyang stood up and ran toward the back of the ship. Minyu followed him, scared but trusting as Captain Dot. In the cargo bay, Taeyang started ripping open crates. Inside were small explosive charges used for mining asteroids. Not very powerful, but they didn't need to be powerful. They just needed to be unexpected. What's the plan? Minyu asked. The Versh have been conquering species for 300 years, Tiang said, his smile never fading. Every single one of those species did the same thing. They either ran away or surrendered. So, what are we going to do? Something stupid. The Versh ships were right next to them now. Tiang could see them through the cargo bay windows. He watched as one of the ships extended docking tube toward the Morning Star. Now Tang yelled, "Mi and Ho!" hit the cargo door release. The entire bay opened to space. All the mining explosives, all the cargo, everything that wasn't bolted down flew out into the void, right into the path of the Vark ships. Explosives detonated on impact. They weren't strong enough to destroy the Varas ships, but they didn't need to be. The ship's sensors were blinded. Their shields flickered. For just a moment they were confused. That moment was all Tiang needed. Hey, full power to the engines. Ram the middle ship. Are you insane? Hun screamed, but her hands were already moving. She had been scared a moment ago. Now she was just angry. These aliens had threatened them. They had tried to make them feel helpless. She didn't feel helpless anymore. The Morning Star lurched forward. It wasn't a warship. It was an old cargo hauler with weak shields and barely working engines, but it was moving fast, and the Versh weren't expecting it. The Morning Star slammed into the side of the Versh raider. Metal screamed, shields sparked. The impact threw everyone to the floor, but the human ship's angle was perfect. The collision sent the Versh ship spinning into one of its companions. Go, go, go! Taeyang yelled, pulling himself up. Hun pushed the engines past their safety limits. The Morning Star pulled away from the chaos, its hull groaning but holding together. Behind them, the Varkez ships were trying to recover. They were damaged but not destroyed. They would be coming after the humans soon, but Tiang was still smiling. That, he said, breathing hard, is how humans say hello. On the lead Versh ship, the commander stared at his screens in confusion. In 300 years of conquest, no prey species had ever fought back like this. No one had ever smiled when cornered. The commander sent a message back to Versh High Command. We have encountered something new. These humans are different. They do not fear. Recommend further investigation. The Versh Dominion had just learned that humanity existed, and they had made a terrible mistake. They had made it personal. The Morning Star jumped to faster than light speed, escaping into the darkness. Inside the ship, Tiang Minyu and Haiyan sat in silence, their hearts pounding. Then Minyu started laughing. We just rammed a virus warship with a cargo hauler. Haiyan started laughing too, the fear draining away into relief. Tiang's smile never faded. Wait until we tell people about this. None of them knew it yet, but their story would spread across human space in days, and the Versh, for the first time in 3 centuries, had found prey that bit back. The war was coming. The news traveled fast. Within 3 days, every human colony knew about Tiang's encounter with the Versh raiders. Some people called him crazy, others called him a hero, but everyone agreed on one thing: the Versh would come back on the colony world of New Jeju. Gu sat in her office and watched the news reports. For the 100th time, she was the colonial defense coordinator, which was usually a boring job. New Jeju was a farming world. The biggest threat they normally faced was bad weather during harvest season. Not anymore. Ju's desk was covered with reports from the Galactic Council. Every single one said the same thing: surrender immediately. The Council had sent representatives from a dozen different alien species, all of them begging humanity to give up. Without a fight, a knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she said. Dongwu entered the office. He was a Marine Corps sergeant, one of only 50 trained soldiers on New Jeju. Colony had 50,000 people total. Most of them were farmers, teachers, engineers, and families, normal people living normal lives. The council representatives want to meet with you again, Dongwu said. Ju rubbed her tired eyes. What do they want now? Same thing as before. They want us to evacuate. Ju stood up and looked out her window. She could see the colony's main town below. Children were playing in the streets. People were going about their daily lives. This was home for all of them. Tell them no, she said. Dong Wu nodded. He had expected that answer. The other species don't understand us. They keep saying we're going to die if we fight. Maybe we will, Ju said quietly, but we'll die on our feet, not on our knees. Down in the colony's research center, Sunhai was studying everything she could find about the Versh. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien species. Right now she was trying to understand how the Var thought. What she found was disturbing. The Versh had conquered 42 different civilizations over 300 years. Every single conquest followed the same pattern. First, they would capture some victims and torture them. Then they would broadcast the torture to the entire planet. Then they would invade. The broadcasts always worked. The defenders would see what was waiting for them, and their will to fight would crumble. Some planets surrendered immediately. Others tried to fight but gave up after the first battle. Sunhai found recordings of these broadcasts. She forced herself to watch them. Even though it made her sick, she needed to understand the enemy's tactics, but something didn't make sense. The Varash tactics only worked because every species they fought had the same reaction to fear. They froze, they panicked, they broke. Humans were different. Sunhai had studied human history. She knew that when humans got scared, they didn't freeze. They got creative. They got angry. Sometimes they did incredibly stupid and brave things, like ramming a cargo ship into a warship. She wrote up her findings and sent them to Ju's office. Then she sent a copy to Dongwu. If they were going to fight the Versh, they needed to understand what made humans different. Meanwhile, in the capital city, Kim Min sat in the intelligence office reading classified reports. He was an intelligence officer, and his job was to know things that other people didn't. Right now, he knew something terrible. The Versh were sending 12 warships to New Jeju. They would arrive in 5 days. 12 ships carrying over 5,000 warriors against 50 soldiers and 50,000 civilians. Kai Hong-min should have been terrified. Instead, he felt angry. He sent a message to Jiu. They think we're easy prey. Let's prove them wrong. Over the next 4 days, New Jeju transformed. Dongwu and LT Unk and GTS Marines started training anyone who would volunteer. Farmers learned how to use weapons. Teachers learned tactics. Engineers studied the planets. Infrastructure, looking for anything that could be used as a weapon. Ju gave a speech to the whole colony. She didn't lie to them. She told them exactly what was coming. She told them they could leave if they wanted. Ships were available for evacuation. Nobody left. This is our home, one farmer said. If they want it, they'll have to take it from us. The Galactic Council sent another representative, an alien named Kelver from a species called the Fanny. The Fanny had been conquered by the Var 200 years ago. Kelver was old and his people had lived under Var rule for generations. He met with Ju privately. Please, he begged, you don't understand what they'll do to you. I've seen it. Everyone I knew. Everyone. They made us watch as they do. He couldn't finish. The memories were too painful. Ju put a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry for what happened to your people, but we're not like your people. No offense, none taken, Calver said. Sadly, but you're making a mistake. The Versh cannot be beaten. Every species that has tried to fight them has been destroyed. Why do you think you'll be different? Ju looked him in the eyes. Because we've spent our entire history fighting each other. We've had thousands of wars on our own planet. We know what real terror looks like because we invented it. The Versh think they can scare us. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we're actually trying to hurt someone. Kelver left, shaking his head. He had tried to help, but these humans were too stubborn to listen. On the 5th day, the Varish fleet arrived. 12 massive warships appeared in orbit around New Jeju. They were beautiful in a terrible way, all sharp edges and dark metal. Their weapons could glass the entire planet from orbit, but they didn't fire. The Versh always followed the same pattern. First came the broadcast. Every screen on New Jeju suddenly turned on. Every communication device, every computer, everything with a display showed the same image. Thought it was Minyu from Tiang and LT Unk and GTS crew. The Versh had captured him during the raid. What followed was horrible. The Versh tortured him slowly, methodically. They wanted the people of New Jeju to see what would happen to them. They wanted to break the colonists' will before the invasion even started. In her office, queued with tears streaming down her face, around the colony, people watched in horror, but something unexpected happened. Instead of breaking, the colonists got angry, very angry. A farmer named Dean watched the broadcast with his family. When it ended, he didn't cry, he didn't panic. He picked up the rifle Dong Wu had given him and said, they just made a big Mistake all across the colony the same. Thing was happening, the broadcast that was supposed to break them had done the opposite. Now they knew exactly what they were fighting for. Now they knew exactly what would happen if they lost. Jiu wiped her tears and opened to communication channeled to the Varkish fleet. Her face appeared on every screen in the colony and on every Varkish ship. She was smiling, but her eyes were cold as ice. Thank you, she said calmly. Thank you for showing us exactly what we're fighting for. You think you've broken us, you've just pissed us off. You want this planet. Come and take it, we'll be waiting. She cut the transmission on the lead Varish warship. The commander stared at the blank screen in confusion. This wasn't how prey species were supposed to react. They were supposed to be begging for mercy. They were supposed to be broken. Instead, this human female had smiled at him. The commander sent word to his troops, prepare for invasion. This would be more difficult than expected, but the outcome was certain. The Varsh had never lost a war on New Jeju. Dong Wu gathered his Marines and the civilian volunteers. Thousands of people stood ready, holding weapons they barely knew how to use. They should have been terrified. Instead, they were smiling. Listen up, Dong Wu said. The Varsh are coming down in landing craft. They have better weapons than us, better armor, better training. They outnumber us 10-1. He paused, looking at all the faces around him. But we have something they don't have. We have home, we have family, and we have something they've never seen before. Humans who refuse to be scared. A young woman named H-Jin stepped forward. She was a combat medic, one of the few with actual medical training. What's the plan, Sergeant? Dong Wu and LT Unk and GT's smile matched Jai Wo and LT Unk and GT's. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to improvise. We're going to adapt, and we're going to make them regret coming here. A civilian engineer named Jan raised his hand. I have mining equipment that can be converted into weapons. Give me a few hours. You've got to, Dong Wu said. They'll be landing soon. All across the colony, preparations continued. Traps were set. Ambush positions were prepared. The colonists weren't military experts, but they were smart, and they were motivated. High above in orbit, the Varish warriors boarded their landing craft. They had invaded hundreds of worlds. This would be just another conquest. That's what they thought. As the landing craft descended toward New Jeju's surface, the Varish could see the colony below. Small towns, farmland, nothing impressive, nothing dangerous. They couldn't see the thousands of humans waiting below, all of them wearing the same expression. They were smiling. The first Varsh landing craft touched down in an open field near the colony's main town. The rump dropped and 50 Varsh warriors marched out in perfect formation. They were 7 ft tall, covered in natural armor scales, and carrying weapons that could cut through steel. They expected to see humans running away in panic. Instead, the field was empty. The Varkish commander, a vet named Chakra, scanned the area with his advanced sensors. He detected human life signs all around them, but he couldn't see anyone. The humans were hiding. Standard pattern, Chakra ordered. Move forward, kill anyone who resists. Capture the rest. The Varsh warriors advanced across the field. They had done this thousands of times on hundreds of worlds. It was always the same. Except this time it wasn't. The ground exploded beneath them. John had spent the last 2 hours placing mining charges. Under the field, the explosives weren't designed for war, but they didn't need to be. They just needed to surprise the enemy. 3 Versh warriors went down. Immediately, the others scattered their perfect formation broken. Then the shooting started. Dongwu and his Marines opened fire from concealed positions around the field. They weren't great shots, most of them, but they didn't need to be. They had spent hours setting up this ambush, making sure every angle was covered. The Versh tried to return fire, but they couldn't see their targets. The humans were hiding in buildings behind vehicles, underground cover. Every time a Versh warrior found a target, 2 more humans would shoot at him from different directions. Chakra realized with shock that his warriors were being hunted. Fall back to the landing craft, he ordered, but Dongwu had prepared for that too. As the Versh retreated, they ran straight into another minefield. More explosions tore through their ranks. By the time the surviving Versh made it back to their landing craft, they had lost 15 warriors. 15 in their first engagement. Chakra immediately sent a message to the orbiting ships. The humans are not behaving as expected. They fight with guerrilla tactics. Recommend overwhelming force on the orbital command ship. The Versh High Commander received this message with disbelief. Guerrilla tactics from a species that had only been in space for 5 years. Impossible. He sent down 5 more landing craft, each carrying 100 warriors, 500 Versh, against a few thousand humans. This would end quickly. It did. Single quotes D. In the colony's main town, Hygiene was setting up a field hospital in a reinforced building. She was a medic trained to save lives, but right now she was also learning how to take them wounded coming in. Someone yelled. 2 civilians carried in a farmer who had been hit by Varish weapons fire. His arm was badly burned. Hygiene got to work immediately, her hands steady. Despite her fear, "You're going to be fine," she told the farmer. "The burn is bad but not critical. You'll keep the arm." The farmer managed a weak smile. "Did we get any of them?" Dongwu and LT Unk and GT's team took down 15 in the first fight. Hygiene said, working quickly, "You should have seen the big scary aliens running away from farmers with rifles." The farmer laughed, then winced in pain. "Worth it." Outside, the battle was spreading across the colony. The Versh had landed 500 warriors, and they were trying to secure the main town, but every street was a trap. Every building was a fortress. Every corner hid another human with a weapon. A squad of Varish warriors broke down the door of a warehouse. Inside, they found John and a dozen other civilians. The Versh expected them to surrender. Instead, John was sitting in the driver's seat of a massive mining machine, the kind used to dig through rock. He had spent the past hour welding metal plates to it as armor and mounting whatever weapons he could find on the front. "Hey guys," Jan said with a grin. "Let me show you what we do with our construction equipment." He fired up the machine's engines and drove straight at the Versh. The mining drill at the front was spinning at full speed. Versh warriors scattered, firing their weapons, but the improvised armor held. Joan crashed the mining machine through a wall, taking out 3 Varish warriors in the process. Then he backed up and drove through another wall, laughing like a maniac the whole time. The surviving Varish warriors retreated. They had fought in hundreds of battles, but they had never seen anything like this. These humans were insane, and they wouldn't stop smiling. In orbit, Tianjiang's ship Morning Star arrived with a small fleet of human vessels. They weren't warships, they were cargo haulers, mining ships, survey vessels. Anything that could fly. Taiyang had spent the past 5 days gathering every human ship he could find and modifying them with whatever weapons were available. This is Taiyang to New Jeju. We're here to help. Ju and LT Unk and GT's voice came back slightly out of breath. About time. We're holding them on the ground, but those orbital ships are a problem. They could blast us from space whenever they want. They won't, Tiang said. The Versh always follow the same pattern. They don't destroy planets from orbit. They want to conquer them, not destroy them. That's their weakness. What's your plan? Taiyang looked at his ragtag fleet of modified civilian ships. Something stupid again. The human ships approached the Versh fleet slowly. The Varash could have destroyed them easily, but they were confused. Why would civilian ships attack warships? It made no sense. Tianyang broadcast a message to all the human ships. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them, we're just trying to annoy them, make them angry, make them stupid. The human ships scattered in all directions. Some flew directly at the Versh warships, then veered away at the last second. Others fired their mining lasers, which barely scratched the Varkas shields but were very annoying. One cargo ship dumped its entire load of garbage directly in front of a Versh warship's main view screen. The Versh commander was furious. All ships target those pests, destroy them. That's exactly what Tiang wanted. As the Var ships focused on the annoying civilian vessels, they stopped paying attention to the ground battle. They stopped coordinating with their ground forces. They got sloppy on the ground. Dongwu saw his opportunity. All units push forward, hit them while they're distracted. The colonists emerged from their hiding places and launched coordinated attack on the Versh positions. The Versh warriors, who had been steadily advancing through the colony, suddenly found themselves surrounded and under fire from all sides. A young Versh warrior named KTH was experiencing his first battle. He had been trained to expect fear from his enemies. He had been told that prey species always ran or begged for mercy. But these humans just kept coming. They fought with weapons that should have been useless. They used tactics that seemed insane, and worst of all, they kept smiling. Kree shot at a human woman who was firing at him from behind a barricade. His shot hit her in the shoulder and she went down. He started to move forward, expecting her to be dead or dying. Instead, she sat up, pressed her hand against the wound, and threw a grenade at him with her other hand. Kree barely managed to dive for cover before it exploded. When he looked up, the woman was gone, dragged away by other humans. They were rescuing their wounded while still under fire. They were protecting each other. They were fighting as a unit. This wasn't what Kreth had been taught to expect from prey species. By nightfall, the battle was still raging. The Versh had landed over 1,000 warriors, but they had lost almost 300. Human casualties were higher, but not by much. And more importantly, the humans' morale was getting stronger, not weaker. In the field hospital, hygiene worked on patient after patient. Her hands were covered in blood, her uniform was dirty, and she hadn't slept in over 20 hours. but she was still cracking jokes with the wounded. You know what the difference is between us and the Versh? She asked a wounded colonist. What? They think pain breaks people, we know. It just pisses us off, the wounded colonist laughed even though it hurt. High in orbit, the Versh High Commander was receiving reports from the ground. Each one was worse than the last. His warriors were being held to a stalemate by farmers and civilians. His ships were being harassed by cargo vessels. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. He sent an urgent message to Versh High Command, request reinforcements. These humans are difficult. It was the first time in 300 years that a Versh invasion force had asked for help. Back on the ground, Dongwu gathered his Marines for a brief rest. They were exhausted, wounded, and running low on ammunition, but they were still fighting. How are we doing, Sergeant? One Marine asked. Dongwu took a drink of water and looked at the Versh positions. In the distance, we're hurting them for the first time in their history. They're actually taking casualties. They don't know how to handle it. Can we win? Another Marine asked. Dongwu was quiet. For a moment, I don't know, but even if we don't, we're going to make damn sure they remember us. Every Varash warrior who survives this battle is going to go home and tell stories about the humans who wouldn't stop fighting, the humans who smiled in the face of death. One of the Marines, a young woman named Sman, checked her rifle. Good, let them be scared of us for a change. Across the colony, in hundreds of different positions, similar conversations were happening. The humans were tired. They were scared. Many of them were wounded. But they weren't broken, and they weren't going to stop smiling. The war spread like fire across human space. What started on New Jeju became something much larger, the Varash Dominion, angry and confused by human resistance, committed 60% of their entire military to crush humanity once and for all. It was the biggest mistake they had ever made. Admiral Siajin stood on the bridge of the human flagship Defiant. He was 60 years old, a veteran of Earth's naval forces, and he had seen combat before, but never anything like this. Around his ship, a fleet of human vessels waited for orders. There were military ships, yes, but also converted civilian vessels, cargo haulers with weapons welded to their hulls, mining ships with their drills turned into ramming spears, survey vessels equipped with improvised missiles. It looked like a junkyard, but it was humanity's fleet, and it was ready to fight. Sir Varkish battle group approaching. His sensor officer reported 15 warships. They'll be in firing range in 10 minutes. Siajin nodded calmly. Next to him stood Minko, a young woman who had become humanity's psychological warfare specialist. She had studied everything about the Versh, looking for weaknesses. Are we ready? With the broadcast, Surgeon asked her. Minso smiled. Ready, sir. The Versh are about to learn something new. For 300 years, the Versh had used fear as their primary weapon. They broadcast torture and terror to break their enemy's will. Now humanity was going to use their own tactic against them, but with a twist. Send it, Siajin ordered. Across all Versh communication channels, a video began playing. It showed human soldiers in combat, but these weren't images of defeat or fear. They showed humans laughing while under fire. They showed wounded soldiers making jokes as medics treated them. They showed pilots performing insane maneuvers and grinning. The whole time, one clip showed Dong, Wu and LT Unk and GT's Marines on New Jeju, celebrating after driving off of Arsh. Attack, they were bloodied and tired. But they were dancing and singing. Another clip showed Taeyang ramming his cargo ship into a Varip, with the audio of him laughing as he did it. The final clip was Juo's response to the Versh torture broadcast, her cold smile, her words, "Come and take it." The message was clear: humans don't break, we don't surrender, and we smile while we fight. On the Versh command ship's warriors watched these broadcasts in confusion. This wasn't how prey species were supposed to behave. Some of the younger Versh warriors felt something they had never experienced before. Fear got the battle began. Moments later, the Varkash expected their usual tactics to work. Overwhelming firepower, coordinated strikes, psychological dominance, but human tactics were different. Unpredictable, chaotic. Yuen was a star fighter pilot, one of the best in the human fleet. She led a wing of 12 small fighters against the Versh warships. Her fighters were tiny compared to the massive Var-like insects attacking elephants. Remember, Yuna said to her wing, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to annoy them, make them waste ammunition, make them stupid. Copy that, one of her pilots replied. Let's be annoying. The human fighters scattered in all directions. They flew patterns that made no sense to the Versh tactical computers. They would charge directly at a warship, then veer away at impossible angles. They would group together, then scatter. They would attack from one direction, then immediately attack from another. Versh gunners couldn't predict them. Human pilots didn't follow standard combat doctrine because humans didn't have standard combat doctrine yet. Every pilot was improvising. One of Yuna's fighters, piloted by a young man named Wujun, flew directly under a Varash warship, skimming so close to the hull that his shield scraped against their armor. Wujun, what are you doing? Yuna yelled, testing something. Wujun replied. He activated his fighter mining laser, normally used to cut through asteroids. It wasn't powerful enough to damage the Versh ship's armor, but it was bright, very bright. The laser carved a line of light directly across the Versh ship's main view screen, blinding the bridge crew for a few seconds. Did you just blind a warship with a mining laser? Yuna asked. Impressed. Sure did. I call it the flashlight special. All across the battlefield, human pilots were pulling similar stunts. They weren't fighting like professional soldiers. They were fighting like people who had watched too many action movies and decided to try everything. It was working. Versh fleet tried to maintain formation, but the constant harassment was breaking their coordination. Ships were firing at targets that weren't there. Captains were giving conflicting orders. The perfect military machine was starting to glitch. That's when Cajun gave the real order. All heavy ships target their command vessel. Full weapons. The converted cargo haulers and military ships opened fire together. Their weapons weren't as advanced as Versh technology, but there were a lot of them, and they were all aimed at one target. The Versh command ship shields flickered under the barrage. The Versh captain tried to maneuver, but Yuna's fighters were already harassing his engine ports, forcing him to maintain position. Shields at 60%. The Versh sensor officer reported 40%. 20%. The Versh captain made a decision that would have been unthinkable a month ago. All ships retreat, we'll regroup, and he never finished the sentence. A human cargo ship, its engine overloaded and ready to explode, crashed directly into the command ship's bridge. The pilot had ejected seconds before impact, laughing. The entire time, the Versh command ship went dark. Without their leader, the rest of the Versh fleet fell into confusion. Some ships tried to continue fighting, others began to retreat. Sajjan watched them go. Let them run. They'll tell others what happened here. Mel was recording everything. This footage will spread across Varash space. Every warrior will see it. They'll see their command ship destroyed by a cargo hauler. They'll see their perfect fleet running from humans. Good, Sajjan said. Let them see. Let them learn to be afraid. But the war was far from over. The Versh had sent forces to multiple human colonies. Each one was fighting its own battle on a colony called Haven's Rest. The Versh had captured a human position and taken prisoners. Among them was Tiang. After weeks of fighting across different systems, his ship had finally been shot down. He was wounded, angry, and in Versh custody. They brought him before Warlord Creeks, the supreme commander of all Versh forces. Creeks was ancient by Versh standards, over 200 years old. He had personally overseen the conquest of 30 different species. I wanted to meet you, Kathak said, studying Taeyang. You are the first human we encountered, the one who rammed our ship with a cargo vessel. Tiang, despite being wounded and restrained, smiled. That was a good day. Kathax was fascinated. Why do you smile? I could kill you right now. Then kill me, Tiang said, his smile never fading. But you won't learn anything. That's why you captured me instead of killing me. You want to understand us. You want to know why your tactics don't work on humans. Creek sat back. You are correct. Tell me, why don't your species fear death? We do fear death, Tiang replied. We're not stupid, but fear doesn't control us. We learned a long time ago that being afraid doesn't help, so we feel the fear and keep going anyway. That makes no sense, Creek said. Fear exists to protect you. It tells you when you're in danger. Taeyang's smile widened. Yeah. And we've spent our entire history being in danger, from predators, from disease, from each other. We've had more wars on our own planet than you've had in your entire empire. We know what real terror looks like because we invented it. Your torture broadcasts, your intimidation tactics, that's amateur hour compared to what humans have done to each other. For the first time in his long life, Creeks felt uncomfortable. Tiang continued, you've been conquering species for 300 years. Every single one of them broke when you scared them. So you thought fear was the ultimate weapon, but you never met a species that looked at fear and said, is that all you've got? Creeks ordered his guards to take Tiang to a detention cell. He needed to think about this. Over the next 3 days, Krethax tried everything to break Tiang. He tortured him, he threatened him, he showed him broadcasts of other humans being killed. Nothing worked. Tiang just kept smiling. Sometimes he would scream from pain. Yes, he was still human, but as soon as the pain stopped, the smile came back. You can't win, Tiang told Krethax after one particularly brutal session. Even if you kill every human in the galaxy, you'll lose, because now you know that there's a species out there that doesn't fear you. That knowledge will eat away at your empire. Every species you've conquered will hear about us. They'll hear that someone finally fought back. And they'll start wondering if humans can resist. Why can't we? Creek struck him across the face. You are prisoners. Your colonies are surrounded. Your people are dying. Tiang spit blood and smiled. Yeah, but we're taking a lot of you with us. How many warriors have you lost? 1,000, 2,000. You've never had casualties like this before, have you? It was true. The Versh had lost more warriors in 1 month fighting humans than they had lost in the past 10 years fighting everyone else. That night Taeyong escaped. He had been studying the detention cell since his arrival, looking for weaknesses. The Versh guards were overconfident. The message came through on every channel at once. It reached every human colony, every ship, every outpost. The transmission was simple and direct. This is humanity. We're done playing defense. Admiral Siajin stood before the entire human fleet. Behind him were hundreds of ships, military vessels, converted cargo haulers, mining ships, survey vessels, even some luxury yachts that had been fitted with weapons. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, and they were heading straight for Var Prime, the Varish home world. Are we really doing this? Mo asked Zergjan quietly. We're invading their home planet. No one has ever even attacked Var Prime before. Esjun nodded. That's exactly why we're doing it. For 300 years, the Versh have attacked other people's homes. It's time they learned what that feels like. Across the fleet, pilots and soldiers prepared for battle. Among them was Yuna, checking her fighter for the 100th time. Next to her, Wujun was painting something on his ship's nose. What's that? Yuna asked. A smile, one said, finishing the crude drawing. I want them to see it coming. On the troop transport ships, Dong Wu was briefing his Marines. Many of them were veterans from New Jeju. They had fought in the first battles against the Versh. Now they were going to finish what they started. Listen up, Dong Wu said. We're not trying to conquer their planet. We're not trying to kill all of them. We're just sending a message. We're showing them that if they come after us, we'll come after them. Understand? The Marines nodded. Them was Hyan, who had been promoted from medic to combat medic after her service on New Jeju. She had saved dozens of lives while under fire. Now she was ready to fight alongside the people she had saved. What about the people they've conquered? Hygiene asked. The other species, will they help us? Sujin had been wondering the same thing. The Versh had enslaved 42 different civilizations. If those civilizations learned that humanity was attacking the Versh home world, would they rise up? The answer came sooner than expected. As the human fleet approached Versh territory, they received a transmission from Kelver, the representative who had tried to convince Jiu to surrender months ago. This is Calver to the human fleet. My people, we've been watching your broadcasts. We've seen humans fight. We've seen humans win, and we've decided if you can fight them, so can we. The Theni are rising up. We're attacking our Versh occupiers. We're fighting for our freedom. Similar messages came from other conquered species, the Korathi, the Vani, the Thraxians. All across the Versh dominion, rebellions were breaking out. Moso smiled as she listened to the messages. It's working. They saw us refuse to be afraid, and it gave them courage. The Versh elder council watched in horror as their empire began to crumble. Rebellions on a dozen worlds. Supply lines cut, communications disrupted and now a human fleet, approaching their sacred home world. This is impossible, one elder said. We have defended Var Prime for 3,000 years. No enemy has ever breached our defenses. The humans are not a normal enemy, another elder replied, watching the tactical displays. They don't follow any known combat doctrine. They improvise, they adapt, they do things that make no tactical sense, but somehow work. Warlord Creek stood before the council. He looked older now, tired. The past months of fighting humans had worn him down. I told you we should have negotiated, he said. Now they're bringing the war to us, then we will destroy them, the head elder said firmly. Activate all planetary defenses. Deploy the home fleet. We will show these humans what happens when they challenge the Versh Dominion. The battle for Var Prime began 3 hours later. The Versh home fleet was massive, over 100 warships defending their planet. They had weapons platforms in orbit, fighter squadrons numbering the thousands, planetary shields that could withstand nuclear bombardment. Against this, humanity brought improvisation and anger. Siajan's battle plan was simple: make them think we're insane. The human fleet approached in scattered groups instead of organized formations. Some ships charged directly at the Versh defenses. Others hung back. Some were broadcasting music, loud, aggressive music that confused Versh communications. What are they doing? Versh fleet commander asked, watching the chaotic approach. His tactical officer had no answer. I don't know, sir. Their movements make no sense. Then Yuna's fighter wing hit them from an unexpected angle. Instead of attacking the Versh warships, they targeted the weapons platforms. The platforms were heavily defended, but they weren't designed to track small, fast-moving fighters that flew in spirals while broadcasting taunts. Come on, you big, ugly satellite, Wooden yelled as he fired at a weapons platform. I've seen better aim from my grandmother. The weapons platform tried to track him but couldn't keep up. Wooden's fighter was flying in patterns that violated every principle of efficient flight. He was wasting fuel, putting unnecessary stress on his ship and flying in ways that made his co-pilot sick, but he was impossible to hit. One by one the weapons platforms went down. This opened a path for the larger ships to advance. Sajan's flagship Defiant led the charge. It wasn't the biggest ship or the most powerful, but it was crewed by humans who had spent months fighting the Versh. They knew every trick, every weakness. Target their command ship. Siajan ordered all weapons. The command ship tried to evade, but it was too slow, too predictable. The Versh had spent 300 years fighting enemies who followed standard military doctrine. Humans didn't do that. The Defiance weapons tore through the command ship's shield. Alarms blared across its bridge. Sir, we're taking heavy damage, the Versh tactical officer reported. Impossible, the Varesh commander replied. Their weapons are inferior to ours. Yes, sir, but there are so many of them. They're not trying for precision hits. They're just shooting everything at us. It was true. Human gunners weren't trained to hit specific weak points. They were just firing as fast as possible at the biggest target. Sometimes quantity beats quality. The command ship shields failed without their flagship coordinating the defense. The Versh fleet began to fall into disarray. Meanwhile, Dongwu and LT Unk and GTS Marines were landing on the planet's Surface, their mission wasn't to conquer. It was to reach the Elder Council chambers and deliver a message. Versh ground forces tried to stop them, but the humans were using the same tactics that had worked on New Jeju. Ambush traps, improvised weapons. They turned every vehicle into a weapon, every building into a fortress. Hygiene was treating wounded Marines while simultaneously throwing grenades at VAR positions. This is insane, she yelled. I know, Dongwu yelled back, smiling. Isn't it great? They fought their way through the Versh capital city. It took 3 days of brutal combat. Humans took casualties, many of them, but they kept pushing forward. Finally they reached the Elder Council chambers. Taeyang was there, having linked up with the invasion force. He had been flying missions non-stop since his escape. Now, he stood at the entrance to the chambers, where the Varish leaders were hiding. Open the door, he ordered. Inside, the Elder Council waited. They were old, powerful, and had ruled an empire for centuries. Now they watched as a human soldier walked into their sacred chambers, covered in dust and blood, wearing a smile. Taeyang wasn't there to execute them. He had a different plan. I'm here to make you a broadcast, he said, the same kind you've been making for 300 years, except this time you're going to be in it. The elders realized what he meant. For centuries, they had broadcast terror to break their enemies. Now humanity was going to broadcast the defeat of the Versh dominion to every species they had conquered. This is Tiang of Earth, broadcasting from the Elder Council chambers on Var Prime, he said into the camera. Behind him, the Varish elders sat in defeat. Your reign of terror is over, not because we destroyed you, but because you've lost the one weapon you relied on, fear. Every species you conquered is watching right now. They see you can bleed. They see you can lose. Your empire dies today, not by our hand, but by theirs. He turned to look at the elders. He was smiling, but his eyes were serious. You wanted to know what humans are. We're the species that learned to smile in the dark. We're the species that fights when fighting makes no sense. We're the species that refuses to break, and now everyone knows it. The broadcast went out across every Varkesh world, every conquered planet, every corner of their empire. The effect was immediate. On Theni Prime, Kelver led his people in overthrowing their Versh occupiers. On Karathi, the rebellion succeeded within hours. On world after world, the species that had been conquered for centuries rose up. The Versh dominion, which had stood for 300 years, collapsed in 3 weeks. Warlord Krethax watched it all from a command center on Varif Prime. He had been captured by human forces, but was being treated well, too well, he thought. Why weren't they executing him? Taeyang came to see him one last time. Why? Creeks asked. Why didn't you destroy us? You had the chance. Tiang sat down across from him. Because we're not you. We don't conquer. We don't enslave. We just wanted you to stop hurting people. Mission accomplished. What are you? Creeks asked the same question he had asked before. Tying an LT Unk and GT's smile was gentler now. We're humans.